Thank you for setting this up, Kelly. So good to see everyone. I'm always feel so welcomed when I come back to Dallas. I was born and raised here. I was the youngest and the only one in my family born in the United States. And I just grew up with the movies because there wasn't really a lot that I was allowed to do growing up in a very strict household. So I went to the movies all the time. It was really like the only hobby I had. It's just always been passionate about it, especially watching movies in the cinema, I think, because you just kind of feel how it can transform people to be, moved or to feel happy and laughter. So I've just always been attracted to that. And when I was 18, my first job ever was at the Inwood Theater. Yay! And I that's where I met Kelly. And I became a projectionist. That's where I learned 35 millimeter projection. And then I went on to work at almost every other theater in Dallas, like in the Angelica, the Magnolia, the Lakewood. I projected at the Dallas Museum of Art. So it's just always been my life. And since I spent my whole life in Dallas, at some point in my 20s, after I graduated from SMU, actually, let me back up. After I graduated from SMU, I founded the Asian Film Festival of Dallas because we weren't getting enough content from Asia. And every time I asked why, I was always told that, subtitles don't do well, no one's interested, it's not gonna make any money. And I just didn't care. Like, I had just personal, selfish motivation to see these films on film in a theater. And I just sort of decided that we could have a film festival for Asian film. Why not? Like, we have all these other film festivals. Other people do it in other cities. Why not? And so I just sort of did it. I was kind of naive, I guess. Didn't know how much work it was going to be, but I just did it with some other friends.
And what year was that?
That was around 2002. I'm sure we got started in 2001, and it all just started with an email list. It started with, I had a box at the Angelica and asked people if they liked Asian film. Do you want a film festival? Put your email in this box. And I was collecting people's email addresses. And once we had a list, then we had a festival because I could just email all these people the dates and the schedule and what was going on, and they came. And so we didn't have any publicists. We had nothing. Somehow I think the Dallas Morning News caught on. I think other papers caught on, but helped spread the word. And it was just like a great community event put on by the film lovers. And so we did that, and eventually I moved on, and the festival kept going, but I moved to New York, I moved to San Diego, and now I live in Los Angeles, where I've been for almost 10 years now. And I've always dabbled I studied film at SMU, and I just always dabbled in independent narrative feature filmmaking. I made shorts, I made a feature with like very little money. I eventually married my husband, who I produce a lot of things for. He's also a writer-director. And so we just live these creative lives, and then I was kind of getting burnt out, to be honest, by the indie world. I didn't think I would ever direct again. I just didn't think, I knew how much work it was going to be. I didn't think I had it in me. You spend 2 to 3 years on a project, and you have to just really be in love with it, because otherwise you're going to just get burnt out by it or bored by it, and you're never going to finish. So nothing really came to me for a while until I just sort of noticed this sort of trend on social media and this like interest in men and cats. And And I don't know what it was when I ever saw pictures or video of men and cats, I get this kind of like this Marie Kondo spark joy or something. Like it just makes me really happy because it's so good to see like a man caring about such a vulnerable little creature. And something about it just really appealed to me, and I felt like, this should be like a movie somehow. I don't know. But then my husband also around the same time never liked animals, just kind of indifferent to cats. He knew I loved cats, but he was pretty indifferent until one day a cat walked into his life, and then they bonded and became like best of friends. And I found it really touching, like the kind of relationship that they had, and that he had this in him. Like, I don't know where this came from. It really surprised me, and I really saw him differently. He just kind of like became a different person. I think when you own a cat, it takes a very special person to kind of love a cat. So I think these qualities of like having patience and being gentle, like really blossomed from that. And I thought, well, if he could become a cat guy, really, like, I would never peg him as a cat guy. How many men don't know that they love cats? So that was kind of where the movie was born. I'd already been following some of these men on Instagram or social media, and I thought, what if they were all in a movie, and maybe this is more marketable than some of the other indie stuff that I was doing. So I just wanted to do it. And I think that some films that have come out in the past few years have proven that people are interested in animal movies. So there's like the Turkish documentary Kedi, even like last year's My Octopus Teacher, I think proves that people love to see these stories that are very heartfelt and endearing, about these relationships between, man and an animal. Because, technology has brought us new ways that we can now film these kind of things cinematically that we couldn't have done before. It's so hard to film cats because once they know you're there, they don't want to look at the camera. Like, they love turning away from the camera. They know when they're being watched by camera, and they're just like, and so they're very hard to work with, right? And so I just thought this is going to be a fun challenge. I was actually kind of naive. I'd never done a documentary before. I knew it was going to be hard, very hard. I've done enough Q&As with other documentary filmmakers that I knew what it was going to be rough, because you have no control of what happens in real life, and anything can happen. But I was very naive. I thought this was going to be just a fun project. It's going to be a light, thing. It's going to help me kind of get my feet wet into documentary. And then halfway through filming, March 2020 happened,
So when did you start filming?
I started in the fall of 2019, and I started with Nathan the Cat Lady. He was kind of like, I just felt like he's kind of a spokesperson personality, like he'd be a good person to start with. And I thought this was going to be a light, easy, fun project, honestly. And I was very naive. I thought I was going to be done in a year. I thought all these things.
Yeah.
And then March rolled around. I had all this travel booked. We were actually supposed to film like in other places in the world. So we were supposed to go to Europe. We had this trip, all these travel plans. We were like halfway through. Everything was like going smooth. We were having a ball. I just thought that like this was documentary is my future. This is awesome. And then like all that happened, and I definitely spent the last year questioning like just what I was doing. I think a lot of filmmakers had like these existential questions last year of like, what am I doing? does it even matter? Does anybody care? Like, how is this important? Why should I keep going? I mean, I really did have days of wondering are we going to finish? Because I don't know, like, what's going to happen. And we had canceled all these trips. I had to just shift sort of what the vision was going to be now, because there were CAT dads that no longer wanted to be in it. I think, like, we kept delaying, postponing, rescheduling, until finally I think they just didn't have it in their heart anymore. And it's just so many things were happening, not just COVID, but the election, the police brutality that we were seeing. All these things were happening. The wildfires, everything was happening. And I just think that there was that momentum that we had was now gone. And how do you get that back? Or what do you do with this movie that is half in the can? And, we just kept getting bad news with David, the cat dad in New York, and we just kept going. And I have to hand it to David in New York. I think that if it weren't for him, I don't know if we would have finished, because he was a lot of my motivation for finishing as quickly as we did. Because, like, sure, I could have waited until the pandemic was over and picked things up again. But because we had started that story with David, it was like we wanted to finish so that maybe this could help him somehow. Yeah. And so we just couldn't stop. We just had to keep going, try to get this out there as fast as we could. So that's the reason why we're here, because otherwise maybe I would have waited if he wasn't in the movie. I don't know, but.
Well, when and how did you meet David?
So almost every other cat dad in the movie, maybe I found somehow through Instagram. Either I was already following them, or I just looked up hashtag cat dads or something like that. Mm-hmm. and just did research, try to figure out where are they from, what they do. I didn't want all the dads to have the same occupation, so I just wanted to spread it out geographically, and by what I just wanted them to be distinguished from each other. And so I was in the middle of it was towards the beginning. I'd already filmed with some of the guys, and we were using that footage to raise money to finish filming. And it was actually through my Kickstarter campaign that somebody who donated reached out to me and said, hey, I have this friend I used to know in New York, and I've been helping him, and he lives on the street, and he has a cat, and he can't get housing because of the cat, but he'd rather live on the street than to lose his cat. I mean, he just lives for his cat. He has nothing and no one else. And so that was intriguing, of course. I mean, he just sounded like the epitome of a cat dad. I was just like, we have to look into this. And then once you meet David, you just cannot forget him, and you can't just leave him to fend for himself. Like, you want to help him. You just can't help it. And so, he agreed to be in it. I don't think he knew at the time what he was getting into. I think we looked like film students, and I think he didn't think it was. I think he thought it was going to be like a little news segment or something, but then we kept coming back all year and filming with him, and I think he just always thought it was strange, like why am I interesting, and he was also very humble, so like he doesn't really like to ask for help. He was actually feeling quite ashamed of the situation that he was in, but we felt like there was no reason to, like none of this is his fault. He just, for some reason, all the cards are against him, but for some reason he still keeps, persevering, and he's just a person trying to survive, and you just can't not make a movie called Cat Daddies without him, because they have a special bond. That cat is like, he calls his cat his baby boy. That's his child. That's everything to him. That is unconditional love right there. And I think that the story of my movie turns more into about that unconditional love and how much we need that now more than ever, and how much of a part our pets play in our lives now after we have a pandemic. You know, our pets will always love us no matter what. You know, even family, as we can see from what's happened last year, can come and go, but those pets will always need you, and he and Lucky need each other, even though I think that sometimes that their story can be a little controversial, because I know a lot of people who just saw him on the street just assume that the cat was somehow being exploited or abused, or this was no place, you know, to have a cat. And I heard that some people tried to take the cat away, but this is his family. I mean, this is all he has. And I was just really touched by the fact that it was the cat that brought all these friends, you know, all these like cat ladies, of course, were attracted to this. But, you know, it wasn't just the cat. It is David. He is like this beautiful, sweet human being. And he needs help as much as his little cat. And then he forged this friendship with Chris the cop in the film. And I just had to show their friendship, because they were, you know, it's just these two guys, these two bros, just talking about cats. And it's not just about, you know, the compassion we have for the pets, but the compassion we have for each other, because Chris had enough compassion in him to befriend, you know, David and try to help him. And David doesn't have many male friends. I don't think he has any except Chris the cop. So it's all these other cat ladies, and then it's Chris the cop, and it's just so sweet that something brought them together, and it's just something beautiful about that.
I got a quick question. So approaching David, I mean, how difficult was that to gain his trust? Because, you know, when you get into a situation like that where, he's obviously vulnerable, he's embarrassed, as you say, he's a very humble person. How did you gain his trust? Was it conversation? Was it over time?
So I think he trusted us because he trusted the woman, her name's Francesca, who connected us. And I don't know why Francesca trusted me, except that she saw my Kickstarter video and she saw the footage. She saw kind of like what we were going for. We were trying to make a movie that was heartfelt rather than trying to show, I don't know, just trying to exploit the weirdness or something of cat people. So she just for some reason thought that, you know, this would be a good connection, and she convinced him. And I think that also just the two of us meeting, we both are into our cats, that like we had so much to talk about. And I think that cat people just instantly feel comfortable and trust other cat people. And it's similar to, like, if you go back to like the beginning of the movie, I started out with that Mark Twain quote, and I think that says everything about the film and everything about cat people, because it's like, it does take a special person to really love cats. And so when you meet someone, especially a man who loves them, there's some willingness to like be open with that person. It's like I've been to like cat conventions, and it's so fun because everybody is just unapologetically like loving cats, and so we feel a level of comfort with each other, like we're kin. Yeah, somehow like we have this connection, and so I think that's how I gained it. Is just being myself, and both of us, you know, having so many things. And I also, it's not really this part of your question, but I really identified and related with David because, you know, my parents are immigrants. He's an undocumented immigrant. a lot of the problems that he has, and he can't get access to a lot of services just because of that, because he doesn't have papers. And so I really identify with that his survival mode that he was in, just because of how I grew up. And I've been in a life transition too. Like I've been in situations where I had to leave my cat, with a roommate while I was in transition, because I didn't have a place to live and I was just kind of crashing with friends. So yeah, I understand his situation completely. And so we just really bonded, and we are still very close today.
And speaking of, your love for cats, for someone that follows you on Facebook and the Instagram, you and Dave love cats. Where did your love for cats come from? Did you have a cat when you were young, or?
I did. I always grew up with cats, usually strays, and feed them and everything. It's just been all my life, really. But it's actually grown stronger because now my husband loves them too. And it's no different from someone loving a dog. It's the same kind of love. It's the same love. There's no difference. The only difference is that maybe the cats feel like they kind of own you, and, I think there is for many people, maybe not all cat owners, there is a close bond that's similar to the man and dog bond. It's just that you don't get to see it because we aren't out in the park with our dog, our cat, the way we are with our dog. So it is very intimate and personal, and you just don't see it, which is why I think making movies about it is great, because then people who don't know that world, they see that. And I've gotten so many comments from people, my friends who watched the movie while we were editing, some people who were not cat people, and they just, their perceptions changed. They had no idea. It was similar to the firefighters. Like, they thought cats were just aloof, and they didn't know that you could have an actual relationship, a friendship, a companionship with them.
You and Dave have always made, narrative features or narrative shorts, and of course, the documentary world is very new to you. So talk to me a little bit about the process of, after you get all this footage, you're editing it up. So what was your workflow in your editing and stuff, and when did you and Dave turn to yourselves and say, yes, we got it? This was the moment that we have the film, and this is, we're on the right path.
I think that it's interesting because in the narrative world, I feel like everything is all about pre-production, the script, everything. Everything has to be planned ahead, perfect, ready to shoot, and then you shoot it, and you already have a roadmap, right, to how to edit it. It may not match completely in the end, but you have this roadmap. And I feel like in some ways with documentary, it's the opposite. You don't really you have an idea, you don't really have a roadmap. I mean, some documentaries do actually, they kind of pre-script everything out. But in this case, I didn't. We just did the interviews, we shot a lot, and then you have all the ingredients kind of to make a soup, and then you try to cook something up with all these ingredients in the end and hope that you get something. That's not everyone's process, I realize, but that was our process, and even more so after kind of my original vision kind of went out the window. We couldn't get to some of the people that we had originally planned, and so we focused more on, we brought in David's story more. Obviously, his story took a turn, so we just spent more time with him and made him more of the kind of spine for the movie, always going back to him and seeing how he's doing. And so I think we kind of knew early on that we had something watchable. So we were really lucky, because it wasn't like we spent the first day of shooting and then came back and was just like, we had nothing. We actually spent the first day shooting with Nathan the Cat Lady, and we cut something together and was like, hey, this is pretty watchable. I would watch this. And then we just kept going with it. And then it really kicked in, because the hardest part was like how to make this feel like there's closure, even though there's not closure with David's story, but kind of make it feel like there's closure. And somehow, I think in the third act, really, I feel like we managed to bring it all together in a way, and it's a collective portrait, and that's what I wanted it to feel like. It's a survey style of documentary, but in the end, it kind of, all the stories are one, really, in the end. And I think once we got that down, we were happy with it. We were like, this is something we can be happy with, even though it's not much like what we were going for. But we always wanted it to be heartfelt, and it is. And
what did you learn about yourself professionally and personally while making this film?
oh gosh, that's a great question. I don't think I'll go back to narrative, except maybe as a producer, but I don't think I'm going to go back to narrative as a director. I really enjoy, and I don't know why. I'm kicking myself. Like, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I know this about myself? Because I enjoy it more because I feel it's more autonomous. I can call the shots. I don't have as many producers to deal with. I don't have a huge crew I have to manage. Like, it was a very small, intimate shoot, 4 people at the most, but most of the time 2 or 3. And there were some times where we couldn't travel back to the East Coast during the summer of 2020, and my DP had to do everything. So he had to go solo, one-man bandit. He had to do the sound, he had to do, the camera, everything. Multiple locations. It was during COVID, so he had to wear mask, what do you call it? The face shield. I think in the hospital he had to wear a gown too over his clothes. I mean, it was just all these things.
It was amazing that he got.
It was amazing that he got so much that he did all by himself, and I was on the phone asking the questions. I mean, it's a lot to coordinate and handle during a pandemic when you're worried about safety, your own and other people. So yeah, it was quite a challenge. I can't say I was happy during that time. It was really stressful for all of us. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I can say, like, I think I could do this again. I really enjoy documentaries. I always loved watching documentaries, sometimes more than narrative. So I'm just like, why didn't I start doing this earlier? Why did it take so long? And then personally, I really learned so much from David. He kept in touch with me this entire time. His ability to be so resilient and his ability to be optimistic is so inspiring to me. Not to say that there wasn't a time where he was deeply depressed, because there had been times we were worried for the worst. We were worried we were never going to hear from him again. There was a time when he got out of the hospital where he was in so much pain, and he was basically felt worse off getting out than going in. And I think and at that time he knew that he was not going to be able to beat the cancer. And so I think, he really was in despair, but somehow he bounced back. And so we were able to film with him for the last scene of the movie. And I've talked to him since, and it's just so amazing to me how at peace he is with where he is at and what will happen. And it's taught me so much, especially during this pandemic. And I think I spent a lot of time during the pandemic worrying about him and actually focusing my energy to how we can help him, how we can I was raising money for him, for my friends. And that took my mind off a lot for myself in the pandemic. So just being able to help someone else was really a blessing to me. And he still says that he feels like he's one of the lucky ones. And that is what's mind-blowing to me, because he has spent so much time on the street that he sees that a lot of people have it worse. He's so fortunate to not be addicted to anything. He has his mental health and clarity. He has Lucky, his cat. He finds so much to be grateful for. It is incredible. I don't know where he gets it from. And so I grew so much personally, I think, from making this movie, and I hope other people grow a little too from watching it and watching his story, because it's so powerful to me. And I think, I really think, he says Lucky is his medicine, and I do think that Lucky has helped him. And I think we undervalue the power of pets in our lives, and especially for someone in David's situation.
Well, one quick follow-up question. In the industry, we don't talk too much about mental health or self-help and care, especially when we're dealing with subjects like this. So talk to me, if you don't mind, about what did you do after the cameras were down, the batteries were on the charger? How did you keep yourself mentally healthy? And talk to us a little bit about your self-care, how you kept yourself healthy and cared for yourself while dealing with David and, some of these rougher and stressful subjects in the film.
Yeah, last year was really rough. I don't know. I can't say I took very good care of myself last year, but I can say that what really turned things around was last summer. We took the film to New York. I rented the Angelica Theater, and we showed it to David and his friends. So we could have 20 people, and we were all socially distanced, we were masked, we were all vaccinated. Thankfully, he was vaccinated. So we could finally hug him. We couldn't hug him when we were shooting that last scene in the movie, and we thought that it was going to be the last time we were going to see him. We honestly, things were so bad, we thought this was it. We need to say our goodbyes. And so in July, he was also doing poorly, and we just wanted to show him the movie, be able to hug him and let him have time with his friends. And it was so powerful, so wonderful. And I think something changed in him and me, I think, since then. I think that we have hope that maybe he can keep going. I mean, he's in a lot of pain, as anyone with cancer, living with cancer would be, but we have hope. I don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to keep going, and he knows that his life is in God's hands. But yeah, there's something changed about his attitude, and then that made me feel better. And just being able to do that, to take some kind of action, made me feel better. Because before that, we were just feeling so hopeless and helpless, and like we can't do anything. and now we're just so grateful for the time that we had and still have with him, and that we made a great memory for him, and we hope that we can screen it more times with him. It's definitely been helpful for me.
What was his reaction to the film?
Oh, he's just over the moon. He had no idea how it would turn out. He had no idea it would look the way it looks. He just, I don't know, he loves it. And he doesn't even just love his story. He loves all the guys' story, all of it. He loves cats so much. Like most of the people he meets, he will learn the name of your cat. He learns the names he knows my cats. He's always asking about them. He just truly, truly loves them, and it's just infectious. It's just so wonderful.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen parts of it. I wonder if there's something in there about this cat phenomenon that was observed during the pandemic with people who normally not at home during the day when their cats take over, and suddenly they were at home and their cats were confused and angry. There was great videos of cats snarling at their own owners just because they were home during the day. And, hey, this is my time, what are you doing here? Get out. And is there anything you touch on? It was work to do a lot of late night comedian routines too.
No, it was kind of shocking, like city to city to city. I kept hearing same thing in LA. The shelters were cleared out at one point in the pandemic. It was amazing. It did cause some other problems like supply chain issues and, hard to get cat food, and some of the veterinarians are it's really hard on them. It's hard for the TNR groups too. It's been hard to keep up, but it's kind of interesting that all that happened while we were making this movie, and but if you think about like people like Nathan the Cat Lady, single, living in an apartment, what would he have done that whole year if he didn't have his cats? And so he just turned it into fun and made cat videos, right? And was posting them. But man, I don't know how people who didn't have pets, I don't know how they made it. If you don't have pets, you don't have kids, or you live alone. I just don't know how you made it through that that period during like lockdown.
So what was, go on.
No, I was going to say, where I live, I can't handle that.
Aww.
And I'm also horribly allergic to cats. I love cats.
You know what? Technically, I'm allergic too. I took an allergy test and it was on the list.
I just had to be in the second room with
Yeah.
So you were born and raised here. What was it like getting the email from Faust saying, we want to bring your film to Dallas?
Well, I was honestly surprised.
James, do you want to come up here?
Yeah, but I was super, at the time, I also just I still don't believe it now. Like, I don't believe it's going to happen until it actually happens, because as you know, like last year I produced a movie that was at South by, the South by that got canceled. And so that was so heartbreaking that I just, ever since, it's like, am I ever going to get to show my movie in a theater? Like, what's going to happen? And so, like, I'm thrilled, but also, like, I kind of can't believe it yet until it happens. But I was thrilled.
Well, it's funny because I've known it's like almost 20.
Over 20 years.
Yeah, almost 20 years. We went to SMU together. And it was really funny because usually when you know someone, we've been to France together, for crying out loud, and you know somebody, usually they send you an update saying, hey, I've got a movie I want you to see, blah, 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 check it out, no promises, whatever. Maya didn't tell me she submitted a film. I just happened to be cruising through our submissions, and I said, and I think before I even watched it, I emailed you and said, did you submit a film? Yeah. It's like, why did you? I don't know. This is how great you are. He was like, there was no preference or treatment wanted. You wanted it to, because you know how film festivals work. So I was probably going to go through the regular motions, not knowing that I actually cruise through every stinking. I'll see every name on every film, and just because things like this happen. And so I put it on that night, and I think I emailed you the next day.
Yeah, that never happened. So I was thrilled because it's like, I don't have to wait on this anymore. This is great. So I just think that because of my film festival background, like, I know, like, there are no special favors. I knew better than to ask. So that's why I just submitted.
That's the secret, don't ask.
Yeah, I just submitted, and like, I didn't ask, I know how annoying it is to ask for a waiver or be asked for a waiver, whatever. So I'm just like,
yeah, I
know how it is.
It was a beautiful surprise because I literally went, okay, Maya made a movie.
So James, your festival's one of the top 20 in North America. You get thousands of
That's cool to know.
you get thousands of submissions every year, and people are pitching films to you all the time through Facebook and Instagram. So what about Cat Daddies really stood out? Because you are doing a smaller version, diff light, I would call it, and it's the best of the best that's out there. Why did Cat Daddies? What was it about that allowed it to make its cut?
In all honesty, and Jess is probably going to get nuts, I am not a cat person. I'm a dog person. I love dogs. I will ride a dog into the sunset. I will have them ride my back. I will probably step in front of a dog in front of a car to rescue a dog before some people. So watching cat, I've got 2 dogs. I love them like they're spoiled. They eat better than we do. They sleep better than we do. It's ridiculous how well they're treated. My wife and I, they're our children. Watching Cat Daddies with that mindset, because my wife still loves her cats, and I'm thinking, yeah, whatever. The fact that I was touched and moved by this movie, by animals I don't really go after a lot, and I go, man, I like cats, they don't like me. And so watching that, I feel for this. The heart of the film, it touched me, it moved me, and then I said I needed a family thing. And it's funny, before you even mentioned it, I was already thinking, because we talked a little earlier about being in a family section. I went, you know what? I think it's a family film because it's different types of families. And it's how, the nuclear family is a thing of the past. We have, more like the quad nuclear family where it's animals, it's adopted, it's everything, and it's just about love. And so that's what really touched me about the film, was how your non-stereotypical, there's cat ladies, there's, dog dudes, what have you, but this is Cat Daddies, and these people exist, and they're not need to be made fun of, and they're just celebrating their love with their cats, and some of them getting paid for it.
And I have to add, and this goes back to one of your previous questions too, is that, when we're going through 2020 with the election and all this, machismo and just this toxic masculinity, getting to work on this film was just such a comfort to me, because I get to see these men being vulnerable, being so, unabashedly, sweet and in love with their cats. It was just nice. It was nice to have that contrast during that year.
And during a lot of film festivals are loaded with independent films that are often dark. It's hard to find comedy, and it's hard to find, love. And so we try to do these family films and other things sort of lighten it up. And there's a lot of really serious, important, really cool things in our festival. That doesn't mean that this really great family film isn't less important. It's just as important, especially right now. And watching this film and the way you will feel coming out of it, you'll think, man, I feel good. And if it had been, and you mentioned it, a more truncated diff light, and it was partly due to COVID. It's doing a longer, more giant, crazy, party-filled festival. It just didn't seem prudent, or just didn't seem responsible. And so we said, well, let's do this. Like you said, the best of the best. We want to do what's the best family film, or best thing that's going to touch people? I was Cat Daddies. What's the best? What's the crazy mind blow film? We have this movie called, ironically, Puppy Love, which has nothing to do with dogs. I'll tell you right now, nothing to do with dogs. And don't bring your kids. But it's a different side of things. But so we were just looking at, all right, what are the categories? We were taking all of our usual categories and bringing it down and putting, here's one from each category that we could support during the film festival that we thought, and Cat Daddies was one of those that there were other family films that we were thinking about that would touch back. This one had a lot of things going for it that those didn't, and I like the fact that it's a documentary, which if you do bring kids, they go, oh good, I get to expose them to a documentary, which they might not be exposed to. So yeah, that's one of the reasons we went with Cat Daddies.
As a film festival programmer, what checkboxes did Cat Daddies check off for you?
Well made. I knew that I could get the filmmaker here.
Which is a big thing.
It is.
Most people don't realize.
It is. I have a film festival, but you just go to the movies anywhere and any time, and what a film festival provides is a window to the rest of the world and an opportunity to speak to the people who opened that window. And so that's what we like to have at our festival. When you can talk to the filmmakers, you can see them, oh wow, I really like that, and you can, and safely at our festival, whether you're master or not, you can go and talk to is David coming?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Cool. So we'll have producer David, who's had lots of films with Mice had films in our festival in the past too. So yeah, so that's one of the boxes it checks. Like, yeah, filmmaker can be here. It's a good film, well made, documentary, family. It's got heart. It's going to make you feel good afterwards. You might want to buy a cat or adopt a cat. I keep saying to my wife, you don't buy the animals, you adopt them. Like, I'm paying for it. I think I'm buying here. Like, buy food for the animals. No. So yeah, that's some of the boxes.
Do you want to talk more about
Yeah.
the films that are playing?
Yeah.
Sure. It's the truncated diff light. I like that you said that. Yeah, I mean, it's still we're still going international. I think we have 11 countries in the 22 features. I think we have 11 countries represented somehow.
Wow.
22 features and 17 shorts. There's 11 countries represented, so that's pretty cool. Opening night, we started going away from a single film opening night years ago. We used to do 1 to 2, 2 to 3, just because it's more of a celebration. So we're still doing that with the French Dispatch. French Exit was a different movie. French Dispatch and Jockey, and a really great political film that, to the point of what Mice film does, is gives you some hope. A movie called The First Step, which has been playing around a lot. It's about Van Jones working with the Trump administration, trying to push forward a revolutionary prison reform bill, and it's about taking that step to get in the middle in a divided country, and it gives you some hope. And that's something I wanted to opening night with, something brave from Wes Anderson, something really smart and heartfelt. That's actually got a local director, Jockey, about a beleaguered and in pain horse jockey, played by Clifton Collins, and directed by Clint Bentley. And then we go into The First Step, which is a really good political documentary that, again, will give hope. And then the weekend is just full of really great films. This year we really wanted to, not a lot of film parties, but there will be films and filmmakers you can talk to, and that's the gist. Trying to explain to people, what about this, what about that? No, the actual idea of a film festival is a festival of films. It's like you have a food festival. There's lots of food. There's a lot of films here, so that's what we're sort of concentrating on. And we're stocked on Saturday with a lot of great things from all over the world. Kenneth Branagh's new film Belfast will be playing as well. This movie out of New York, but it's a Ghana film out of New York City called Queen of Glory, which is amazing. And then we have a couple other Catherine Keener film called No Future, which is made in Fort Worth, and the whole cast and crew are going to be here. Not Catherine Keener, but everybody else seems to be coming in for that. And so that's on Saturday afternoon. And then, we've got some horror stuff too. We kept that alive with The Blazing World, which is also an Austin-made film from a Fort Worth director, Carlson Young.
Are they all coming?
Yeah, they're all coming. They're all going to be here. That whole Saturday is just chock full of filmmakers. So you can come and meet them and talk to them, and there will be a midnight Q&A. But you're going to want your mind will be melted after The Blazing World, and you'll be okay. Wow, Udo Kier just kind of blew my head open a little bit. So that's what we're going to do with this. But it's really fun. A little bloody, but then again, it is going on at 10:30. It's part of that sort of horror genre that we like to also celebrate.
I know that your board and your staff has worked very hard with local health officials to make this safe. So for the audience out there who may be a little iffy about coming out to public, because a lot of us are public shy, what is DIF doing this year to keep audience safe?
Well, we're working with CDC guidelines that are with theaters, and so all the theater staff will be masked. And we're taking it one step further. Besides all of the Dallas International Film Festival employees, not only will be masked, but we're also all vaccinated going in. We'll do our best to social distance in the theaters best we can, but the theaters already has some sort of social distancing in place between the rows, and we will, if you're uncomfortable, we will try to fix it for you to sit somewhere where you can feel comfortable. And if you completely aren't comfortable, we'll refund and we'll shoot you for next year. Hopefully things will be better. So we're working with the theater. I was there all day today trying to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to do this, how we're going to keep clean. We have a computer screen that we're going to be wiping down. We've got laminated schedules that we're going to have, like, yep, touched it. We're going to clean it right after you finish touching it. We are not printing paper tickets at all. Everything's going to be digital. If you want to print your ticket and bring and show it to us, we're not going that way. So everything's going to be on your phone and scans. and things like that. So we're trying to stay, as touch-free as possible, as best we can, and to make it, again, just a safe environment, because people are going to movies. You can see the box office right now is kind of ridiculous, and we happen to be on the same weekend as the new James Bond movie and the second weekend of Venom, and Shang-Chi just will not die. That movie's still in theaters everywhere. So when you get to the theater at the Alamo Drafthouse Cedars, you're going to see us on 3 screens, Bond on 2 screens, and then Venom and Shang-Chi on another screen. So it's going to be a fun environment. It's going to feel like going to the movies again. Just going to be a lot more masks. It'll be like Batman.
For people that don't know, you're the artistic director of the Dallas International Film Festival. So walk me a little bit about programming this year. How has programming been different this year? Are you seeing different film, different quantity of films, different quality of films, subjects because of the pandemic?
More films than ever. This is probably the largest amount of films we've had in probably 16 years. I think 14 years. That math is bad for me. About 14 years since we had this many films submitted, and it's kind of crazy. I think things are being held back, and things that were for 2020 that may have submitted to other festivals and not submitted to ours, and all of a sudden we get it later, and because it hasn't been seen yet, because there wasn't anything to do it online in 2020. So I've seen a lot more films, and then for us, we were going in with an 8-day festival, big brouhaha in mind, and I was programming for that, and then to have to go in and sort of curtail that and go to filmmakers and say, hey, look, we'll push to next year. I love your film, but it's not, we just won't have room for it now. That was tough. That was probably the toughest part of this, was literally having films that we had accepted and that we're looking forward to it, and having to make a choice of, we have to make this smaller. And that was tough, but most people understood, and it was great. And they were saying, yeah, well, if we're around next year, we'll definitely do next year. So that was probably the biggest hurdle and biggest sort of touchstone that we had to get over.
How does that make you feel, Mye, that your film made the cut? Very abbreviated. I mean, this festival is known for 8 days and 200 plus films, and you made the cut. I think they're only showing, 60 this year?
More like 22 features and 19 shorts.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, I'm grateful, because I think otherwise I would have had to wait till next year or something. I mean, it's just really special to bring this back home to so many people who have supported me for decades, and it's just so great to have my first kind of public screening with them. And I'm grateful to James and the team for making this happen, because I know they moved mountains to make this happen. And I would have been fine with whatever they decided. So I would have been supportive, because I know how hard I know how hard it is.
Yes, you do.
I'm glad I'm not in your shoes, but I'm glad to be here. It's more fun to be a guest, I have to say.
That's what I hear. One day I'll be on that side. Yeah, we're honored to have CAT DADDIES and have you guys here. And hadn't had a good chance to see Mye. Literally, I don't think we've seen each other in person in probably 3-5 years.
Yeah, quite a while.
Oh man, running around Sundance in the snow or
5 years
something.
at least or something. Yeah, it's been a while.
Well, we really need to wrap up.
Okay.
So is there anything we haven't touched on that either one of you would like to mention?
Other than dallasfilm.org, get your tickets
Yes.
now.
So talk about dates and times and stuff.
Yeah, so the festival starts in, October 8th. It goes through the 10th. We're running 5 programs on Friday the 8th, and then 12 on Saturday, and then 10 on Sunday. Tickets are available. Tickets are going fast for CAT DADDIES, so get them while you can. DallasFilm.org is the website. You can find there and pick your tickets, and if you have a pass, you can get 2 tickets to anything, and so we will see you there. And if best thing you can do, though, to help us help you, is if you can buy your tickets beforehand. You can do it on your phone right in front of us. It's that easy. And if we need to help you, again, we will have sanitized computers that I was working on today, making sure they work and everything. These laptops that will be able to, you'll be able to get your own ticket on that. But for the most part, we're not selling them to you. You're doing it yourself. It's all there. It's the electronic age.
And Mye, what do you know what? Tell me.
Sunday at 3 p.m. And I just have to say that there's no substitute for the in-person. And that's why we're thrilled to be bringing the film here. And thank you so much.
What are your socials? How can we follow the successes of CAT?
Oh, so it's very easy. We're on everything, and it's just at CAT Daddies Movie. And there's a website, catdaddiesmovie.com. So it's very, very easy. Easy to find me.
One more quick question. After CAT Daddies, what are you working on next?
I co-produced another documentary, actually, that a friend of mine directed, and it's about a very famous Japanese-American rock climber. Her name's Ashima Shiraishi, and she is one of the world's top climbers. She started when she was 13. This movie has been an 8-year in the making for this young filmmaker. It's his first documentary. So actually, Dave has been editing it. I've been helping as well. And so we just finished and we've been submitting. So it'll be probably coming out next year. But it's an amazing story, not just amazing rock climbing footage, but it's a story. It's a father-daughter story. And it's timely, I think, because because of all the talk about mental health and sports and women and young athletes and the pressure to be the best at a younger age more and more. So it's a really cool doc, and we hope to bring that out next year.
And you will tell me before you submit it, right?
If you want me to, yeah.
Started.
We haven't opened that yet, so yeah.
And what other festivals will the CAT Daddies be going to?
Oh, good question. So next is Newport, so that'll be kind of like we're treating that as a LA premiere, and then Tallgrass in Wichita, Kansas, which I'm excited about. Then Hawaii, we're gonna go to Hawaii and present it there. That'll be fun. Another festival we weren't sure was going to happen, but it looks like we're going to go. And Austin, there's actually a all-animal film festival called Animalis Fabula, and it's in Austin, and it's Thanksgiving Day weekend, so I'll be there for that.
Awesome.